Good morning and welcome to HAC Chats. My name's Hamish Adams-Cairns, your host, and I'm joined today by Ben Holdstock, who is the head brewer from Heaps Normal. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Hamish. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being here. How's things?
Real good, yeah.
It seems fitting to me that this conversation that's about to happen is going on between a Brit and an Aussie. All right? We are two countries who are weirdly proud of our drinking habits and culture, where the grey area between being laid back and enjoying a drink and having issues with drinking is a blurry line, right? And I love the fact that Heaps Normal effectively describes itself as an independent, non-alcoholic beer company, creating the new normal when it comes to mindful drinking. So do you think we've gotten to a point where we are effectively mindlessly drinking?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely in Australia and from what I've heard in Britain as well, we've, I guess we're at a point where we've sort of forgotten why we're drinking in the first place. And I guess we've been pretty open about the fact that we believe that Australia's drinking culture is a bit broken. And like, I'm the first to say that I still enjoy a beer. I'm a brewer and I love drinking. So I'm definitely not trying to preach sobriety, but we do think that there is an issue with binge drinking and the way it affects society and health and stuff more broadly. So, you know, we sort of wanted to address that by making a beer that really does taste like a full strength beer without the booze and try and affect a small change in that culture.
Well, in that way, I think you actually have the hardest job in the world. Okay? You've taken on something where you've got to create a non-alcoholic beer that actually tastes good. And in my experience so far, that beer does not exist. So this could be it. This could be the first. And the second one is, how do you make non-alcoholic beer cool, right?
Yeah.
Like you've touched upon, Aussies like a drink, Brits like a drink. Selling something that is the taste without the effect is a hard sell, I imagine. So, I mean, one of the things that sort of drew me to Heaps Normal, I guess, is the story behind it. So before we really get into it, you know, I know that it's your desire as a company that we create better stories that we actually remember through having nights out where we don't drink ourselves into a stupor, right? Yeah. And also, you're one of the 4 creators of this company, all of you who've got different relationships with alcohol throughout your lives. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the other 3?
Yeah, so Heaps Normal was founded by 4 friends, some of which have been in the brewing industry for quite a while, and some of which come from different backgrounds. And I guess the common link is that we all sort of wanted to reduce our alcohol intake by some amount for whatever reason. So the 4 co-founders are myself, Andy Miller, whose background is in marketing, and his sort of I guess approach to the whole mindful drinking thing is around cultural change. He's really interested in how that plays out across cultures and I guess products and stuff as well. Pete Brennan, he's the head of brand. He's a designer by trade, and he's been pretty open. He doesn't have a good relationship with alcohol. He grew up in a family with some alcohol problems, and he basically doesn't want to drink, but he still wants to be able to enjoy a beer in a social setting. But he wants to be productive. You know, he's got 2 kids and he runs another business as well. So he really, his approach is trying to, it's a personal thing for him, I think, quite different. And then Geordie Smith, the pro surfer, who's trying to win a world title, and he wants to, his angle is like really performance based, you know, like not being out, not drinking, and seeing how far he can push himself on that really pro athlete level, which is pretty interesting as well. And for me personally, like being a brewer, working in craft beer for the last decade, I still love a beer, but I guess what I love more is the experience around drinking and hanging out with friends and socializing. And so I want to be able to do that still, but still do all the other things that I really enjoy in life. So being able to do that and drink a bit less at the end of the night for me is a big win. And I think I want to drink a beer that I actually enjoy. Like that's still a really big important thing for me. I flavour some beer. Like I don't want to drink Carlton Zero or a soft drink or something. Like I want to drink something that tastes hoppy, that's like an IPA and XPA. So that was sort of my approach to make a beer that personally I'd still enjoy drinking.
So 2 of the 4 of you don't drink effectively?
Yeah,
at all.
At the moment. Andy and I still enjoy beer, and that, I guess that's our approach has been not to preach sobriety, but to sort of the mindful drinking practice where you might have a night off, you might have an alcoholic beer and then a non-alcoholic beer, or you might have a week off. Really a personal thing. Like everyone is different, and I think that's sort of represented in the four of us, our different approaches to drinking, and we sort of wanted that to carry through in our messaging as well, not to prescribe a sort of a way to drink to people, knowing that everyone's so different in their approach.
So how did the four of you effectively come together? How did this whole thing start?
So Andy and I met whilst working at Young Henry's, another craft brewery in Sydney. He and Pete met in that capacity too. Pete was as I said, he's a designer, and I think he was going to do some work with Young Henry's at some point. It didn't sort of happen, and that's how they met. They stayed in touch even though there was no working relationship there. And so Pete grew up in South Africa, and he's really good friends with Geordie Smith. They grew up surfing together, and Pete brought Geordie in that way.
So it was two different sets of mates come together.
Exactly, yeah.
And this was in 2018, right?
End of 2018, yeah, and probably took about a year for it all to come together. Definitely a slow process, lots of chats and working out things, and I think it's confusing now. So it's I think it took
probably
took
really
about
exist.
a year and a half to sort of get the business off the ground properly, and we launched in July 2020.
Right. Oh wow, July 2020. Okay, so it was right in the middle of
COVID.
This whole game. Yeah. There's a cat about to walk behind you. You can ignore that. a new friend to the garden. So, what sort of triggered it for you from being? So you're a brewer. You've been in it for 10 years. You worked amongst others at Young Henry's, which is obviously one of the big ones here.
Yeah.
What flipped it over from you going, I want to work in a non-alcoholic beer rather than a alcoholic one? And what are the challenges that involves? You know, how different is the brewing process?
It took me a while to get my head around the idea of brewing alcohol-free beer, because it is a small category in Australia, and it's not really in the mainstream psyche yet. It was a weird one for me, because just trying to articulate it properly, like the more I thought about it, the more I realized this is something I wanted to be involved in from a personal level of how it could sort of contribute positively to society and sort of give back a little bit. I know that sounds quite lofty, but I guess 10 years working in booze, it can get a little bit depressing, drinking all the time and thinking about the fact that essentially we are making a product that isn't, it can be really fun, it can be really great and contribute some cool things, but it also can do a bit of bad. And thinking about that, I think it was something that I was interested in, because it allowed me to still brew beer, which I really love doing, and the whole culture around that, but at the same time have a slightly more positive edge to it.
So it was a moral sort of responsibility.
A little bit, yeah, but at the same time it was also a real technical challenge for me, and that really excited me. Like, brewing alcohol-free beer is hard, definitely harder than normal beer for sure. The alcohol contributes a lot of body, a lot of mouthfeel. It interacts with the hop oils differently. So the flavour of alcohol-free beer, as you've said, it's pretty lacking for the most part. Hopefully we can change that.
Well, I want to get into that, because we've got quite XBA here, which is the Heaps Normal, the first of your beers. I know it says on your website that you had to effectively redesign the brewing process to create this. So for the brewers and the beer heads listening and watching this, who I imagine short bearded, small beanie hats, who really want to get into the nitty gritty of how you actually made this and what is so challenging about making this. What do you mean by redesigning the brewing process? Okay,
so I mean, it's a little bit technical, but without the alcohol in the liquid, beer would be very thin tasting, very watery. So that body has to be replaced through, I guess, the carbohydrate profile. So I guess just trying to explain it in a sort of straightforward way.
That's all right. You can get nerdy in this bit. You can get techie if you want to.
So I guess what I tried to do is create a carbohydrate profile in the beer with enough complex, like long chain molecules that gave the liquid sufficient body and flavour without being sweet. So that's the challenge, making it not too sweet, but also not too thin, and finding that balance without the alcohol. That's a big challenge. The other side of it is the fermentation. Most alcohol-free beers made by like the big brewers are de-alcoholized, so they're brewed like a normal beer, and then the alcohol is removed either through vacuum distillation, so it's boiled off, or through reverse osmosis, so it's filtered out. So we don't have access to that technology, and secondly, we didn't really want to use it either, because we sort of felt that it takes a lot of flavor out with it as well. So we've brewed with a special yeast strain that produces a trace amount, I guess similar to kombucha maybe, 0.4% alcohol, which is basically nothing. That's the final alcohol after fermentation, so it's a trace amount. Similar to what you'd probably find in like a ripe banana or something. Like lots of foods actually contain alcohol.
Yogurt.
You don't realize that. So I guess it was the combination of changing the brewing process, using the raw materials slightly differently, the mash, the grist, the cereal components, and then also that combined with a special strain of yeast that sort of selectively ferments, and using that in conjunction with the type of sugars that we want to produce in the brewing process.
Are there other beers brewing it that way?
Yep, there are a few in Australia doing that now as well.
Cool. But the big ones, the sort of the Becks and all of those guys,
they'll be de-alcoholized. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I've tasted those. I mentioned, in 2015 I took a year off booze, and I thought I'm going to become the connoisseur of non-alcoholic beer. And I mentioned I had a Beck's Blue in the first week, and I didn't touch a non-alcoholic beer for 11 months.
It's a bummer that's probably the experience of lots of people when they're first, making a foray into alcohol-free beer. They'll drink like a Carlton Zero or something, and they'll be like, this is not going to work. Do
you rate any non-alcoholic beers that you've had prior to this?
Yeah, definitely. I don't mind the Heineken Zero. I think that's made pretty well. Tastes like a Heineken. It's pretty good. I really like the sober beers. They're another Australian brewery up in Queensland. They make some really interesting products. Who else is there? There's Upflow, another mob down in Victoria doing some cool beers. So there's a few around now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Because it seems it's not something you see an awful lot in a pub. You mentioned there's not a huge market for it, but I do feel as if we are, as a whole sort of culture, becoming more interested in these non-alcoholic options. I think 5-10 years ago it was soft drinks or fruit juices, that was it. Whereas now, like you mentioned, kombucha, I've done a bit of work with Seedlip, like there are more options out there, but it seems as if non-alcoholic beer hasn't exploded onto the market in a pub or in a bar in the same way that those perhaps have.
No, definitely not. Not in Australia anyway. I think
are there other countries that are
well, I think in America and in Europe, alcohol-free beers has been around for a while, and it's a little bit more mainstream. I think people like Seedlip and Liars and alcohol-free spirits have paved the way a bit for the concept here. But conceptually, it's hard for people to get their head around it in Australia, and it might be the same in Britain. I'm not sure, but when we first started, we did about 6 months of trials at home before we sort of happy with the product and to make sure we could do it within spec. Then we did a commercial trial of blank cans down at Brick Lane where we brew. We didn't sell them. We just basically made 50 cases, and we handed them out to a bunch of friends and family and stuff, just to get people's feedback to see what it was like. And it was a funny response. Like a lot of times you'd speak to people and they'd be like, what's the point? Alcohol-free beer. I think it took a while for people. It's still taking a while for people to get their head around it. The cool thing is once people taste it, you can see it sort of click, and they're like, this tastes like a beer. And then they can sort of see when they think they would enjoy it. So
have you ever tried doing it as a blind test and not tell people it's non-alcoholic to see?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, has it fooled people effectively?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
a few people for sure. Yeah, a lot of people think, it's probably like a mid-strength, or some people think it's full-strength beer, which is really great.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, definitely.
It's funny, when people say, "What's the point?" and I was thinking about that in the sort of building up for this episode. People say, "What's the point in non-alcoholic beer?" I think, look at decaf coffee.
Yeah.
Right? Decaf coffee, I read yesterday, is estimated to be worth 2.8 billion as an industry by 2027.
Yeah. Okay.
Not everyone loves the taste of coffee in the same way not everyone loves the taste of beer when they first start drinking it, but people are into it for the effects.
Sure.
So if non-alcoholic beer can just follow the decaf world, you'll be laughing.
Hope so.
We're doing this from your mansion in 5 years. Exactly. But no, you touched on it. I said at the top, you've got the hardest job in the world, which is encouraging people to to like non-alcoholic beer, you know. And I've stood in Dan Murphy's on a Friday night trying to sell Seedlip, and I've been told where to go.
Yeah, totally.
Often, you know, so you've taken that on.
Like I sort of said, our approach is not trying to sort of sell sobriety as our sort of goal. Like, you know, I think we want to encourage people to think more about drinking. That's all. And if they can do that and then enjoy a Heaps normal beer and then a normal beer, you know, 1 for 1 or something, that's awesome. Yeah,
I think that's sort of what I find what you're doing inspiring, and that you've seen that there's a problem in the Australian drinking culture similar to Britain.
Yeah.
And rather than just smash us over the head by saying everyone should be sober, it's more sort of travelling alongside us to gently guide us towards
just a different approach to drinking. And like saying everyone should be sober, that is just unrealistic. And also, people don't want to be sober. Like, it's totally fine to drink alcohol still, I think. I think just having a little bit more thought around it is probably healthy. That's all.
Absolutely. Plus, then you can drink beer at 5 a.m. or 10 a.m.
on the
way to work. Yeah, exactly. Which is always a buzz. You
definitely feel like you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I know. I've been there. You cracked it in front of. Well, I guess you work with people now. If you in a normal office crack a beer at that time, see the looks you get, or come in smelling of beer and go, "No, man, it's not alcoholic. It's not on me."
Pregnant women.
Exactly. Well, we couldn't sort of go through a podcast without mentioning COVID. So at a time where I imagine people's drinking has gone through the roof, and bottle shop sales of every booze imaginable has probably exploded.
Yeah, for sure.
How have you found launching a non-alcoholic beer during that time? You know, how have you?
It was a bit scary at first, for sure. Brewing our first batch in July 2020, right in the middle of like COVID and lockdowns in New South Wales and Victoria. We sort of intentionally held off approaching a lot of on-premise venues, pubs and bars and stuff, because, well, firstly, they're mostly closed. Secondly, we didn't want to sort of, they were going through hard times, and we didn't want to sort of hassle them. So we focused on off-premise. We focused on retail and also our direct-to-consumer channel on our website, which has been really good. And I think we're still learning. I mean, and we're still reacting. Venues are still, you know, quite conservative with ordering and stuff at the moment, because they could be closed next week, and no one knows what's going on. So it's definitely been a weird time, but I think what we did right was just being flexible in our approach and being able to shift our focus to retail or online sales, or back to on premise. Hopefully that's a segment we can grow in the new year, like actual pubs and venues and stuff. But intentionally sort of left it a bit quiet.
But in terms of actually shifting units, is retail where it's at in terms of getting this sold in comparison to a bar or a pub?
I think for us, definitely, because like we were saying, it's still a new concept for people. People go to the pub to drink alcohol, and there'll always be a couple of people that go and have a non-alcoholic drink, but for the most part, I think going to the pub is when you go there to drink beer or wine or whatever. So retail, and we've had really good success with like specialty bottle shops, places like P&V in Newtown and Winona up in Manly, like really offering premium products and really good service. They've been really good for us. People going there for specifically to buy our product, and also online retailers of alcohol-free products as well, where people are specifically seeking us out. That's been really good for us. So that was we're pretty lucky to get in. Yeah.
How does that actually work? Do you literally walk the streets knocking on doors of bottle shops and, you know?
I do, yeah. I don't know what other people do. Like I was saying before, my background's in brewing, so I have been doing a lot of the sales, Heaps normal, and that's kind of what I do. It's probably a better way.
It's a challenging game. My first job here was Remedy Kombucha, and I had to go knock on 30 cafe doors a day and just say, please,
it's pretty
please
tough, isn't
take it, you know? And there's a lot of no's, a lot of rejection. It's a lot of, particularly when I had no personal connection to the thing that I was selling. This is literally your baby. I imagine the nose sting a bit more.
A little bit. Took it pretty hard the first few times, but then I got a bit of a thick skin now. It's fine.
True.
Not everyone's ready for it. It's totally cool.
And are there any online websites that are specifically we just sell a variety of non-alcoholic beers?
There's a lot popping up. So there's Craft Zero, they're a big one.
Yeah.
There's Alco Free, there's Sans Drinks. They're all dedicated alcohol-free online retailers stocking beer, wine, and spirits, and they've been really good for us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of people out there that buy from them, which is cool.
Amazing. And they're all Australian based?
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing.
We're only Australian based for now. Haven't sold outside of Australia.
Cool. Oh, amazing. And then sort of how does this grow? When you're still a young company effectively, how do you go about, you mentioned just before we start recording, you have, although you're the head brewer, you've got a million different hats, So you mentioned going into bottle shops and independent owners and also, are you funding? Are you trying to get, approaching investors? What does a day-to-day look like?
I should have mentioned before, we have just recently got funding.
Brilliant. Well done.
Not a huge amount, but a little bit, basically to give us a bit of working capital, because it's a super capital intensive business. Like, fronting up the money for a production run of beer is a lot, and we've got to ship it and store it, and we don't see the return on that money for up to 60 days or whatever. So we need a bit of money in the bank to run. So we went through, I don't know if you've heard of it, but a program called StartMate.
Okay.
Which is traditionally, I guess, been more associated with the tech industry, and I guess it's probably like you'd call it like a business accelerator, 12-week program with a bunch of mentors and a bunch of courses, and at the end of that, I guess the goal is to really sort of grow the business and to get investment as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that, which was really cool, and we did do a small round of investment at the end, and we got that funding at the end of 2020, which is really the idea being to help us grow. So we had to hire a couple of people to help with sales and operations and stuff, actually give us a bit of a marketing budget and continue production.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking to develop a sort of second beer, or is it the moment to sell this one?
No, definitely. We're actually developing one now for release in March, which will be pretty exciting, and then hopefully another one later in 2020 towards the end of the year. To keep you posted on it. Exciting.
And then what's the dream? What does Heaps Normal look like in 10 years?
Yeah, cool. The dream for me is definitely to open up our own brewery somewhere up here in Sydney, probably within sort of 12 to 18 months. So we've got a home base HQ where we're making all our beers in house. We've got a venue people can come and visit, and we can have events out of there and really have that as our home, and as part of that continue to grow the business to really, I guess, see Heaps Normal like all over the place, like a normal beer. I guess that the ultimate goal is to normalise alcohol-free beers, so that you can go into any pub, and if you want, you can order an alcohol-free beer, and we just want to, I guess, be part of that movement.
Awesome. And
really push that idea.
I don't know if this is a silly question or not, but obviously at the moment it's in a can. Can you get non-alcoholic beer on tap like you would in an ordinary pub?
Not at the moment, but it is something we're working on. There's a few challenges around dispensing draft alcohol-free beer. One, because there's no alcohol in it, it freezes in the lines quite easily.
Right, yeah.
So it'll pour like a slushy out of the tap, which is a little bit annoying. So that's the main one. We got to figure out how to actually dispense it in a way that'll work for most venues. It's something we're actually discussing this week. We're trying to work out how we can get around it. It would be cool, but I think also it would be a slow mover at a lot of pubs.
So go off or go just sit there growing dust on it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean that was part of, just going back to what you were saying before around launching in the middle of COVID, was having one product and just one packaging format was probably a real advantage, because the business was simple. We didn't have 4 products, 2 different packaging formats for each product. Like, that really allowed us just to focus on one thing, and it was, I think, really lucky that we didn't launch off the bat with 2 or 3 different products.
The only reason I said that is because I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges I imagine is making this cool, making this normal. And I guess the way that a lot of non-alcoholic drinks seem to do it is you just disguise yourself as an alcoholic drink. You know, Seedlip looks like a gin and tonic in a pub. You know, people drinking kombucha.
Yeah.
A kombucha bottle kind of looks like a beer bottle anyway.
Totally.
And people make cocktails out of kombucha, so you could say, yeah, it's got vodka in it. So sort of conning everyone is a way to be invisible at the pub.
And having it on tap would be
that's the one, right?
Like that. I'll just grab a Heaps Normal and pour it off a tap. It's in a glass, looks like a beer, tastes like a beer. Yeah.
Because we've all been in situations where we've been peer pressured or given a bit of stick for.
I've ordered Heaps Normal at a bar and asked them to pour it in a glass.
Yeah.
Sometimes, depending on if I'm out and I don't want to have to answer the question.
Yeah.
You know, but I think our can design, I'm pretty proud of it. Pete did a really great job. It looks really cool, and I hope people are happy just to hold it. It looks kind of like a beer, and just sort of holds its own amongst other beers. But it is an interesting point. You know, sometimes it's easier to actually just have a beer if people are constantly asking you, oh, like, why aren't you drinking? Like,
exactly.
So I think it is important for it to look and feel like an actual beer.
Well, that's why. Yeah, the year that I gave up, I found it easy because people say, why aren't you drinking? I said, I gave up for charity. People are like, cool, man, it's for charity. There's no follow-up questions. You're all right. So if anyone out there needs a get out of jail free card excuse, that one seems to work.
That's a good one.
But otherwise, just giving up because you don't want to drink on a night out is hard. You know, people give you stick, and I guess that is part of the problem that we're talking about with Australia and Britain with this drinking culture. Is you get stick for not drinking on a night out, which
you've got to explain yourself, and it's like you're the odd one out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it shouldn't be like that.
No.
If you don't want to drink it. It's like going to a cafe and getting a milkshake instead of a coffee. Like, no one's going to really ask you. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, true. And can you see Australia, England, wherever, for the moment Australia, becoming more, drink away? Has it gotten better in the last 10 years? Can you see us slowly becoming more aware?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think there's a whole movement of people that are more concerned with health, especially younger people, and I think alongside that, ourselves and other brewers that are making products that actually are good, and working in the craft brewing space. I think we can actually contribute a change. I don't see why not, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I know it's important cultural part of our, and probably the British society too. Going to the pub, and that I guess that has to stay as a thing people do. And I think being able to do that with an alcohol-free beer, being able to have that social connection, that that tethering to your community, as long as we can maintain that, I don't see why not.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing, is it? Going to the pub is fun because of the environment.
Yeah.
It's fun because of the people.
Yeah.
The drink is spice to that situation. It's not necessarily the heartbeat of the fun.
Exactly.
It's
yeah. That's how I like to think about it. Like we're not going to the pub to drink. We're drinking at the pub, but the reason we're there is for the social connection. That's the true reason we go.
Well, I think you guys are doing an awesome job. There's 4 of you mates, all with interesting stories surrounding alcohol. You've got Pro Surfer, which is always handy when you want to push something cool. And I think actually using a sportsman is key, I think, in terms of promoting not drinking, because they're fit, they're cool, they're in the limelight.
For sure.
They don't drink for athletic reasons, which will definitely get a load of men and women interested. So yeah, I'd always choose my guests for this show carefully. I want to choose people that I believe are doing something inspiring, in the hope that it will inspire anyone that listens or watches it. And I think what you guys are doing is awesome, because it's not just, like I said, telling us off for drinking. It's trying to educate us and trying to help us help ourselves effectively by introducing us to a way to do it more morally responsibly and still with a delicious product.
Cool. Thanks,
so thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Hamish.
Thank you for creating Heaps Normal. Where can people find you?
Most good independent bottle shops around town, also on our website as well. It's probably the easiest way, depending on where you live. Yeah, but there's a stockist map on our website, so you can always have a look what's near you, and if not, just reach out to us, and we'll be able to sort you out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Hamish.
Cheers.
It's been a pleasure.